Hello, everyone. This is Bible Perspective. I am Brother Ryan Boland. Thank you all for joining me. This is a channel where we analyze current events from a biblical and prophetic point of view. What I want to talk about today is the Netflix series known as Stranger Things. And I'm pretty sure that you guys are familiar with that. I must admit that I did watch the first season of Stranger Things, and I believe the second season some years ago. I think it was like 2018, 2019. And I have to admit, I did watch them, and I have to admit, I liked them, okay? I like the Stranger Things series. But what I found out in an article from Christian Post, which I'm about to read in a minute here, there is some shocking content in here. Apparently, there has been over the fourth season, I think it's in its fourth season now. Now, after the second season, I no longer had watched it. I didn't watch the third season. I didn't watch the fourth season, which is what it's supposed to be in now. I kind of lost interest in it. I was like, okay, you keep going on and on and on and on. It's losing its appeal. But according to this article, there's been a sharp increase in violence and explicit language and sexual imagery. And you have to wonder why, what's going on here? Because these TV series, this TV Stranger Things is, from what I understand, is aimed at younger people. So what's going on here? Why would you increase the sexuality? Why would you increase the foul language? What's the point? I mean, you trying to gain more viewers? Is it merely monetary, or is there something else going on? And what I want to say, I think there's something else going on a spiritual level. You know, we're going to get into the spiritual part, and I'm going to get into what I believe to be the prophetic part as well. So let's get into this article here. Let's get into this article. And the article is entitled, Netflix hit Stranger Things sees sharp rise in profanity and violence. And it says Netflix hit series Stranger Things seems to be getting more explicit as the show and its young cast grow older, according to a parents watchdog group. And maybe before I go any further here, maybe someone could argue, well, the reason why it's becoming more explicit because the young people are getting older, and so therefore it's going to become more explicit. But these young people are not full-grown adults at this point. They're not full-grown adults at this point. So there's no reason for it to get explicit. I mean, you can't say, well, they're getting older, so that's why it's becoming more explicit in terms of language and so forth. No, it's not a good enough excuse. Let's go on. The new report from the Parents Television and Media Council, PTC, found that the TV-14 rated program has steadily introduced more explicit adult content with each new season. Notice what it says, steadily introduced more explicit adult content, which with each new season resulting in what it calls, quote, a shocking increase of uncensored profanity and graphic violence. Now in its fifth season. Oh, I'm sorry. Fifth season. Okay. I was wrong. I said fourth season. Fifth season. Okay. So I've stopped watching it at the second season, but let's go on. Now in its fifth season, Stranger Things has enjoyed multi-generational appeal among audiences, with subscribers having viewed nearly 287 million hours of season 4. Wow. 287 million hours. That's a lot. PTC's Stranger and More Explicit Things report analyzed each episode of all 4 seasons utilizing content filtering data from VidAngel, which uses content filters to identify explicit content in select programs. Based on that data, the nonpartisan media watchdog found a 217% increase in profanity from seasons 1 to seasons 4, including a staggering 739% increase in the frequency of the word S. So you know what that means, from season 1 through season 4. Now, gee, what's going on here, right? While the show didn't use the F word until its second season, that word was used 6 times in season 2. And I didn't really pay much attention to it, which I should have, because I'm looking at the special effects and the story and the characters and stuff like that. But anyway, 5 times in season 3 and 9 times in season 4, according to the report. See how they're introducing this stuff a little bit at a time? Really? Really? Is there any reason for that? Those were still children in season 2 and season 3 and season 4. They were still children. Anyway, Compare that with the TV Parental Guidelines Monitoring Board content rating system, where a single usage of the F word would trigger a mature audience content rating. On basic cable and broadcast TV, a single use of that same word would violate federal indecency laws. Melissa Henson, PTC program director, told the Christian Post that the disparity is striking. Across the board on these streaming services, standards have slipped dramatically, said Henson. These streaming services have content that would never have been permitted on broadcast TV in particular. The F word and the S word is dramatically increased on streaming services, far beyond what you ever saw on broadcast and cable. And let me say here on this, you think about this, these F words and S words and so forth, and this extreme content on streaming services, and I'm giving my opinion on this, my spiritual opinion on this, I believe increases because it's hard for parents to monitor it. I mean, just about every young person has a phone, right? And they can download whatever they want to download. They can download pornographic material. They can download explicit material. They can download Netflix, Hulu, whatever. They can download it, put it in the app, and they can watch these programs without their parents knowing about it. In school, out of school, in the bed. They're not in. I mean, come on, let's be realistic. They can do this. So it's easier for them to obtain this kind of explicit content. You got to understand how the enemy works, man. You got to understand how he works. He's very subtle. In addition to foul language, the report also noted a 307% increase in violence from seasons 1 to season 4, the last of which contained depiction of dead children. Henson said, even though the series TV 14 rating has not changed, there has been a quote dramatic increase season over season in both foul language and violence. We're not talking about 1 or 2 percentage points. We're talking about hundreds of percentage points, she said. To have that frequency of explicit language and frequency of violence and see that increasing without any recognition or acknowledgement is, I think, very troubling. And it is. The report concludes by calling on Netflix to immediately reevaluate its content ratings for Stranger Things, as if that's going to actually happen. Because as long as these series, Stranger Things series, are hits, they're not going to worry about it. They ain't going to worry about the foul language and uses. They're not going to worry about that because they're making money. Anyway, goes on to say, Netflix as a platform has come under increased scrutiny in recent years after early reports from PTC found, quote, pornographic content and sex, violence, and profane, indecent, or obscene language in animated shows, Big Mouth, and Human Resources. Never even heard of that. The watchdog group also warned parents in April about what it describes as a, quote, disturbing increase in sexualized TV, movie, and streaming content aimed at aimed at younger audiences in popular shows such as HBO's Euphoria, which included fully nude images of more than 30 high school age boys in just a handful of episodes from second season. And that's the end of that article right there. I've never watched any of those programs of Euphoria. I ain't never even heard of it. Because, excuse me, I got a little allergy here. Because, I don't really watch Netflix that much. I do, but I only watch mostly the older movies from like the 70s and 80s and maybe even to the 90s. A lot of their so-called original content, I don't watch it hardly. A lot of it is getting into a lot of politicizing and pushing a lot of really immoral content, transgenderism, homosexuality, and all this kind of stuff. I don't want that, and a vast majority of viewers don't want that as well, which is one of the reasons why a lot of those shows on Netflix are failing. And Netflix is in such hot water is partly because of the content that they're putting out. They're putting out content that most viewers don't want to see. But anyway, having said that, this TV series, Stranger Things, like I told you, TV series, but a streaming series on Netflix, Stranger Things, I've watched seasons 1 to 2. But as I said before, the other seasons, I kind of lost interest and I stopped watching them. It wasn't because season 1 and 2 weren't great or anything on an entertainment basis, but it's just I kind of lost interest. I was into my own little thing at the time. But here's the deal. Assuming that this is looking at this thing spiritually, I believe what the enemy is doing here is he's setting up the young people. He's preparing the young people for the new world order that he's creating. This new global government, global one world religion, and global economic system. He has to get everybody's mind in a state of impurity and ungodliness. He has to get he cannot have, Satan cannot have pure-hearted, pure-minded people in his kingdom. He can't have that. Everyone's minds have to be corrupted. And I believe that he's using these TV shows, the spiritual forces and demonic forces are using these kind of these kind of streaming services to desensitize the young people to immoral activity. If you look at TV shows and sitcoms in the early 50s and even in the 60s, but particularly in the 50s, they were relatively wholesome, were they not? You had Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best and different shows like that. Even some of the shows, even in some of the shows in the 70s, Good Times and stuff like that, they were relatively wholesome. Because even with Good Times, which I think was like 1971, 1972, it was relatively wholesome, or at least it contains some aspects of morality. And I don't ever remember anything of it, if it being explicit in any shape, form, or way. I mean, we had a father figure, a strong father figure. He was imperfect, but he was a strong father figure. We had that, and so people were seeing that imagery. So it was relatively pure. And then, but going back to the 50s, most of the content in the TV sitcoms were pure, and they represented a worldview at the time in America that was reinforcing the school systems and reinforcing the home. And most of that worldview was taken from a biblical centric point of view. But the worldview has been changed now because, as I mentioned in previous videos, we have certain people like secular humanists, cultural Marxists, communists, socialists, and occultists that have infiltrated the school systems, infiltrated the entertainment industry, infiltrated the politics, and have been a part of these institutions for decades. And they're pushing their worldviews into the society, and especially among our young people, because young people, we know this, young people their minds are very fresh. They're not mature, clearly, and their minds are fresh and their minds are receptive. And so at that age, young people have a hard time discerning right from wrong. And if right from wrong is not being reinforced in the home, then TV shows that are spitting out this explicit content like Stranger Things season 4 and season 5 or whatever, and other types of content is spitting out this impure information, is going to desensitize the children more and more and more. In the end of this video, compare the young people of today to the young people of the 60s and the 60s and 50s and 60s. Compare it. It's totally different. Totally different. What happened here? A change of worldview, because Satan is trying to set up his kingdom. He's trying to keep the young people desensitized so it's easier to control and manipulate them in his one world global government that he's trying to create. So that's what I believe is going on. I think that the responsibility, of course, we all know, is for parents. We can only do so much. We can't be around the children 24/7, especially if many of us are working and so forth. We can't be around them 24/7. But we know our responsibility as Christian parents and as moral parents is that we do have a responsibility, and we got to make sure that the best that we know how to reinforce moral values and moral principles in our young people, because they are facing a lot of temptation, way more than what we was dealing with. Okay, way more than what we were dealing with. So they're facing a lot more temptation, and I believe it's the responsibility, in part, if not completely, the responsibility of the parents to begin to reinforce biblical principles and moral principles at even a higher rate in these last and evil days among our young people, because they're facing too much. They're facing a lot of demonic attacks on a level that we could not even imagine. So I believe that that's what's going on right here. What do you guys feel about this article that I just read? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel. God bless you all, and see you again on Bible Perspective.